Hello and welcome. I'm your host and speaker Sandhya, and I'm a data engineer at Infometry. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. In today's webinar, I'll be talking about data sharing in Snowflake. Feel free to drop questions on the topic or share your struggles and experiences during this live session. We'll answer your queries through chat. Let's start the session. This session is organized by Infometry. We are a pure play data analytics company based out of Fremont, California, with our offshore development center in Bangalore, India. We came into inception back in 2010, and since then we've been offering domain-specific analytics solutions for high-tech, energy, life sciences, retail, manufacturing, and finance customers. Being a data analytics software services and solutions provider, we focus on delivering predictive and prescriptive analytics solutions, cloud data warehouse implementation, data governance, enterprise service bus, microservice-based integration solutions, big data, cloud DevOps, Salesforce CRM, and product engineering, etc. Infometry has been an engineering and consulting service partner for companies like Snowflake, Google Cloud, Informatica, MuleSoft, Databricks, Fivetran, Tableau, Adaptive Insights, Microsoft Azure, and Matillion. Moreover, Infometry has developed 22 plus Informatica cloud connectors and Snowflake native apps with pre-built connectivity to NetSuite, Salesforce, and Marketo, enabling the real-time analytics across Snowflake, Google BigQuery, Amazon Redshift, Databricks, and Azure services. One mentioned under blue blocks are developed and owned by us, and the rest are developed by us only for organizations like Informatica, SAP Leaders, etc. We have developed a state-of-the-art analytics solution, InfoFiscus, which can be hooked to any on-prem or cloud CRM, ERP, or planning apps. InfoFiscus is 100% cloud-based, pre-built analytics software developed using open architecture. InfoFiscus comes in three different layers: finance, supply chain, sales and marketing analytics. So we are delighted to announce the launch of the next generation InfoFiscus Snowflake native applications, featuring pre-built connectivity to NetSuite, Salesforce, Marketo, and more. These applications enable seamless integration and real-time analytics. That's our quick introduction, and now let's move to our today's agenda. Now that we have completed the introduction, let's quickly walk through what we'll be covering in today's session. So we'll start with a basic understanding of Snowflake data sharing, what it is and why it is important. Then we'll move into how it actually works behind the scenes, which is where things get really interesting. After that, we'll look at the different types of data sharing available in Snowflake, and we'll also explore the Snowflake marketplace, followed by discussion on security and governance, which is a very critical aspect when it comes to data sharing. Then we'll go to some real world use cases and best practices. And finally, we'll wrap with a quick Q&A. So by the end of this session, you should have a clear understanding of how Snowflake simplifies data sharing while keeping it secure, scalable, and efficient. So what is Snowflake data sharing? So let's start with the most fundamental question. What is Snowflake data sharing? In simple terms, Snowflake allows you to share live data across different Snowflake accounts without copying the data. Now, this might sound simple, but it's actually a big shift from how data sharing traditionally works. Earlier, if you had to share data with another team, a partner, you would typically build ETL pipelines or copy data into another system and maintain multiple versions of the same dataset. And this process involves time, effort, cost, and ongoing maintenances. With Snowflake, none of that is required. You keep a single copy of your data and multiple consumers can access it in a real time. Now, if we step back and think about it, why was data sharing such a challenge earlier? Here, because data was always tied to systems. If I had data in my system and you needed it, I had to physically move it to your system. That creates multiple versions of truth. And when there are multiple versions, there are always questions like which one is correct and why numbers are not matching. So Snowflake solves this by keeping a single source of truth. So instead of moving data to people, we are allowing to people to access the data where it already exists. Let me give a quick example. Imagine a company that has sales data and needs to share with it multiple partners. Traditionally, they would create separate pipelines for each partner, but with Snowflake, they just share the data once and all the partners access the same live data set. So there is no duplication, no delay, and no maintenance overhead. Another important point is the data is always up to date. Consumers are not looking at yesterday's data, they are seeing the latest version. And also, Snowflake doesn't change for data egress. So that Snowflake doesn't charge for the data egress during sharing, which makes it very cost efficient. So overall, this is not just a feature, it's completely new way of thinking about data sharing. And next is how Snowflake data sharing works. Now let us understand how this sharing actually works. Here, there are three main components involved: provider, share object, and consumer. First is the provider. This is the account that owns the data. The provider creates something called a share object and grants access to a specific data. And the next is the share object. This is very important. It only contains metadata and permissions. It doesn't store any actual data, which means the data is never copied. Finally, we have a consumer. The consumer creates a database from the share and starts querying the data. From their perspective, it looks like the data is available locally. But in reality, they're accessing live data from the provider. Let's take a simple scenario. Suppose I'm a retail company and I want to share sales data with my supplier. Instead of sending files or building pipelines, I just create a share. The supplier can immediately access and query the data. If I update the data now, the supplier sees the updated data instantly. So we are not just sharing the data, we are sharing live real-time data. There is also another advantage here. Since the data is not copied, there is no delay. Whereas in traditional systems, delay can cause issues because decisions may be based on outdated data. But here, everyone sees the same versions at the same time. And one more important point, the consumer uses their own compute resources. So the provider doesn't incur compute cost. This makes the model very efficient and scalable. The next is how to set up the data share. There are just three simple steps. First, the provider creates a share. and grants access to the wide databases or tables. Second, the provider adds the consumer count. Once this is done, access is available immediately. Third, the consumer creates a database from the share and starts querying. If you look at this, it might seem like just a few SQL commands. But behind the scenes, this replaces a lot of complex processes. In traditional systems, this would involve building pipelines, scheduling jobs, and handling failures. But here, everything is just simplified. What used to take days or weeks can now be done in minutes. Also, the simplicity increases adoption. Teams are more likely to use a system that is easy to set up and manage. So, this is not only reduces effort, it also improves how data is used across the organization. So, we have types of data sharing. Snowflake provides multiple ways to share data depending on your needs. First is direct sharing, used for sharing data between two Snowflake accounts. And the next is Snowflake Marketplace, used to share data on a larger scale. Then we have our data exchange, which is useful for a private collaboration among a group. And finally, our reader account, which allows sharing data with users who do not even have Snowflake. If you look at these options together, you'll notice something interesting. Snowflake is not just solving a technical problem, it is enabling different ways of collaboration and even new business models. Organizations can share internally, collaborate externally, or even monetize their data. This flexibility is what makes Snowflake very powerful. Snowflake Marketplace. Now let's talk about the Snowflake Marketplace. This is a platform where you can access ready-to-use datasets from various providers. There are hundreds of providers and thousands of datasets available. And the best part is you can query the data instantly without even downloading. Let's take a practical example. Suppose you are building a dashboard along with your internal data. You may need external data like weather or market trends. Earlier, getting this data would take time, but with Marketplace, you can directly access it and combine it with your data. This helps in building more meaningful insights. So instead of just analyzing what happened, you can understand why it's happening. Security and governance. Security is a major concern when it comes to data sharing, and Snowflake handles this very effectively. Since data is not copied, the provider always retains control. You can define access at a very detailed level. For example, you can share only certain tables or mask sensitive columns. Let's say you are sharing customer data. You may not want to expose personal details. Using masking policies, you can protect the information. Another key feature is instant revocation. If access is removed, it is removed immediately. No leftover copies. Snowflake also provides audit logs, so you can track usage. This builds trust. Organizations feel confident sharing data because they remain in control at all times. Key benefits and the ROI. Now let's look at the business impact. First is cost savings. Since there are no pipelines or data duplications, costs are reduced. Second, speed. You can access data in minutes instead of waiting for days. And the next is scalability. You can share data with many users without increasing complexity. And the fourth is monetization. Organizations can generate revenues by sharing the data. And finally, reduce risk. Since the data is not copied, the chances of data leakage are minimized. From a long term perspective, this is very important. As the data grows, traditional systems become harder to manage. But Snowflake keeps things simple and scalable. Let's look at a real world example. In retail, companies share inventory data with suppliers. Instead of sending reports, suppliers can access live data. This helps them plan better and respond faster. This improves efficiency and reduces delays. So, data sharing directly impacts businesses' outcomes, not just technical processes. That brings us to the end of the session. Before we move to Q&A, let me quickly summarize. Snowflake data sharing. It eliminates data duplication, provides real-time access, ensures secure sharing, and scales easily. I'm happy to take any questions.